There's a role inside many companies that still pays around $120,000 a year. It doesn't show up in org charts very clearly. It doesn't usually have hiring buzz around it, but it sits quietly between leadership and decisions. And in a growing number of firms, it's already gone. Not eliminated, not outsourced, just no longer necessary. I'm talking about the research analyst, not the junior one, not the intern pulling numbers, the experienced analyst, the one trusted to synthesize information, spot patterns, prepare briefs, and reduce uncertainty before decisions are made. For years, this role existed for one reason. Information was abundant. Insight was not. So companies paid humans to read, compare, summarize, and interpret. That made sense when speed was limited by people, when coverage was constrained, when mistakes were expensive. But that constraint no longer exists. And that's the part most professionals are underestimating. What changed wasn't the job description. It was the economics of thinking. Today, information is not scarce. Attention is. Executives don't need more reports. They need fewer decisions to be wrong. And the fastest way to reduce decision risk is not more headcount. It's compression. Compression of research time. Compression of synthesis. Compression of iteration. This is where the role quietly collapses. Because the modern AI system doesn't do research the way humans do. It doesn't read linearly. It doesn't get tired. It doesn't prioritize emotionally. It absorbs, cross-references, simulates, and reframes continuously. And crucially, it does this without asking for clarity, context, or reassurance. In the past, analysts justified their existence through effort, hours spent, depth of analysis, volume of slides. But leadership never cared about effort. They cared about outcomes. The analyst existed because they reduced uncertainty faster than alternatives. That is no longer true. Today, the alternative is always on, always current, always cheaper. And it doesn't take sick days. This isn't about accuracy in isolation. Humans are still excellent at judgment. But companies don't pay six figures for judgment alone. They pay for judgment plus throughput. When throughput becomes effectively infinite, the math breaks. So the role isn't removed violently. It's bypassed. A manager asks fewer questions. A VP stops requesting weekly briefs. A team notices decisions are being made faster without waiting. Eventually, no one files a requisition to replace the analyst who leaves. Not because leadership hates the role, but because nothing broke when it disappeared. This is the most dangerous kind of replacement, the one that doesn't trigger resistance. No layoffs, no announcement, no transition plan, just silence. And from the outside, everything still looks normal, until you realize entire layers of analysis are no longer human-dependent. Now here's the part that makes this irreversible. This is not a story about tools, or prompts, or dashboards. It's about incentives. Inside most companies, the research function exists to justify decisions after the fact. A market scan, a competitive brief, a quarterly outlook. Not because leadership lacks intuition, but because organizations need permission structures. They need something to point to. In the past, that permission took time. Requests were made. Analysts worked. Slides circulated. Revisions happened. Calendars filled up. Delay was built into the system. Today, delay feels unnecessary. When answers arrive faster than meetings can be scheduled, waiting becomes indefensible. And indefensible processes don't survive budget reviews. Once a system exists that can synthesize faster, cheaper, and continuously, reversing that decision would require paying more for less speed. No CFO signs that off. No board asks for it. No executive volunteers to slow down. So the change doesn't spread because it's impressive. It spreads because it's invisible. It doesn't feel like transformation. It feels like efficiency. Does this mean humans are irrelevant? No. But it does mean the value has shifted. The surviving professionals are not the ones who analyze. They're the ones who decide. The ones who frame questions. The ones who define constraints. The ones who own consequences. They carry judgment, not summaries. Everyone else is upstream. And upstream work is the easiest to automate. This is why the replacement feels sudden when it finally becomes obvious. By the time people notice, the role has already stopped being defended. Not because it failed, but because something quieter took its place. Most professionals will dismiss this, and that's exactly about job displacement is the timing. They assume roles disappear when technology becomes powerful. That's rarely how it happens. Roles disappear when delay becomes indefensible. For decades, organizations accepted friction as a cost of doing business. Information moved slowly. Analysis took time. Decisions waited for alignment, consensus, and justification. That delay wasn't accidental. It was built into the system. It created a buffer, a sense of responsibility, a paper trail. But that buffer only works when alternatives are slower. Once systems exist that can compress research, comparison, and synthesis into minutes instead of weeks, delay stops looking cautious. It starts looking wasteful. And waste is what budgets are designed to remove. This is why displacement today doesn't feel dramatic. There are no announcements, no sudden restructures, no mass exits. The work simply stops being requested. Briefs get shorter. Updates get skipped. Decisions move forward without waiting. From the outside, nothing looks broken. Inside the system, an entire layer has quietly lost its leverage. This is where the real divide emerges, not between humans and machines, but between people who produce inputs and people who own outcomes. When information becomes abundant and synthesis becomes cheap, the only scarce asset left is judgment. Not opinion, not analysis. Judgment. The ability to define what matters before the data arrives. To set constraints instead of reacting to them. To accept responsibility for trade-offs rather than documenting them. That shift is already underway. Most organizations won't describe it as transformation. They'll describe it as efficiency, as speed, as modernization. But the effect is the same. Some roles stop being defended. And the professionals who survive are not the ones who worked harder. They're the ones who moved closer to decisions. This change doesn't announce itself. It just keeps going. And by the time it feels obvious, it's already irreversible.